Welcome to Unhinged Magi. Good to have you guys back. This is going to be kind of like a third video in a series where I made a first video a while ago. In fact, it's actually this video where I basically said like how to fix like WoTC, how Wizards of the Coast could actually change things in order to improve their business long term, not short term. And I think a lot of people missed the point of that video. It's not that Dan and I ever thought that Wizards of the Coast would take our advice. We don't think there's any remote chance of it. But we wanted to help set all of your perspective on what would probably fix the game long term. And so we made that video, and then some people misunderstood. And so I actually made a follow-up video responding to one of the commenters. And it was actually this video where I even titled it, I Respond to a Comment. And there's another type of comment that I saw really commonly, like in those two videos overall. And that's, as you see the title of this video, like, wasn't there always bulk commons? I mean, didn't Wizards always used to make bulk garbage? Because a lot of new players, you know, they don't really know the history going all the way back. All that they know is from at the point they started. And a lot of new players make these very grand assumptions on what Magic was like back in the day. So not only am I going to speak from that experience, having actually been there, at least for part of it, because I started in '96, but I don't think it was very different even from, you know, '93 when it first began. So I didn't miss much. But I'm actually going to show you guys actual proof that Wizards didn't always just print bulk crap back in the day. And how does a person show that? How would a person show that they don't always produce bulk crap? Well, first, let's define what that means. If you are going to talk about what it means to be bulk crap, in my mind, there's two clear definitions of it. One of them is financial based. The other one is playability based. From a financial perspective, bulk crap is going to be cards that they don't even have like hardly a fraction of the value of good cards in the set. So if you're going to look at like your best card in the set and then maybe like your tier 2, 3 cards that are like several notches down the list, and then you're going to spread that out and look towards like the middle cards in the set and then like the lower tier cards in the set, what does that price curve kind of look like, right? That's one way to define it. Like a perfect example to describe an extreme is like, what if there was a set where you could open up like one card worth $1,000, maybe a couple worth $5, and then everything else is 10 cents, right? I mean, that would be like an extreme example of like one good card and bulk crap, right? Now, the other side of that coin would be the playability aspect. Like if cards, even no matter what their value is, which is like a ratio supply demand, how much do people actually care about it, right? Because you can have supply go up, you can do more printing, but if the demand goes up with it, then they can equalize out. So the other one is really about like the quality of the card, the playability of the card. How good of a card is it in the game? And I made the comment to a lot of people in the comments below on the last couple of videos that even though today, in hindsight, when we look back and we see a lot of those old cards, we recognize them as bulk crap today, but that wasn't the perspective back then. When the card pool is smaller and you have a creature that's like a 3/3 for 4 mana and with no abilities, well, these days that would be garbage. But back then you had to use it because you didn't have a lot of other options. And that doesn't mean the card unto itself is just a great card, but in that pool of cards, it is a good card. It was a playable card. And the way that you could prove that that metric actually bore out was two ways. One of them is that people actually wanted the card enough to be willing to buy it, and that actually gave it a financial value. But then the second thing is that they actually played it in decks, and that's what I'm going to prove to you guys today. So what I've got set up for you here is actually kind of cool. So let me turn on the camera first. I have the first edition Inquest. I'm going to hold it over here on the screen. And what I have over here is a microscope that's actually pointed down. It's a microscope USB camera, so I can get a good zoom in on what's actually in here. And so I have a certain section bookmarked in here. And so I'll show you guys. I'll open up to this section. So I'll move that out of the way. And actually, I'll just show you here. What I'm actually showing is an article that was showing like a deck. That's a deck that people might actually want to play. And the article was called To Beat the Moxes, right? And then when you look in here to the actual, the cards that are in the list. Now, again, this is an Inquest first edition. This is May of 1995. So this is pretty far back there, right? Now, what you see in here is there's an awful lot of cards in here that like don't typically see a lot of like play value. They're not considered to be high-end cards. They don't really command an awful lot of money. In old school format has pushed a lot of these up, but for like the majority of Magic's history, you know, they really weren't, right? Now, keep in mind, this article was called Beat the Moxes. So they were literally saying, hey guys, here's a deck that you can actually use to go beat your friends that have Power 9 and stuff like that. And the cards that they're talking about, I mean, we're talking, you know, Sorceress Queen, Singer Vampires, Howl from Beyond, Simulacrum, right? I mean, when was Simulacrum ever a big thing? And let's see, Juggernauts, never really been that big. I mean, Llanowar Elves have been used in an awful lot of decks and stuff like that. So then over here next to it, there's a section called Flower Power, where they're actually talking about like another deck. And you can see right here, Argothian Tree Folk, Carnivorous Plant. I mean, nobody ever considered Carnivorous Plant like a very high-end card. Or Feral Thalid, Floral Spasm. I mean, they're talking about all these cards, and they're not just hyping Wizards cards. There actually was value to be understood inside of those. And if a person doesn't believe, what they can do. Okay, so this is really old price guide. So these are like harder to read. I'll show you guys what it looks like over here. So the price guide changed its format like after this first one. I'll focus more on the other ones, but let me go to a set that's like one of the newer sets in 1995. Here's Fallen Empires. That's probably a really good thing to base off of. Okay, so let's get a good zoom in here for Fallen Empires. And you can see we're looking at Basal Thrall, Breeding Pit, Daralor, Ebon Praetor, Hymn to Turak, Initiates of the Ebon Hand, Mindstab Thrall. And we look at the prices of them. I mean, there's like really good cards in that list, and then there's, yeah, not so great cards, but you're looking like your range is like $2 all the way down to like 50 cents. The highest dollar card in this set, as I'm scanning across it, is something like $4. But let's focus on some other magazines where it's easier to see more of them side by side. So let me take this one and set it aside. And I'm going to go to the next one in the list. And this is actually this was my first Inquest that I ever bought all the way back in 1996. That's one I bought after the fact. But like when I first got into Magic, I bought this one. This is my actual first one to try to get an idea of what the value is. So I have another article saved inside here. Okay, and it's called Killer Decks, and it's talking about all of these Mother May I, very counterspell heavy type decks. Let me see if I can get it down to the section. Move this up a little bit. Okay, Dastardly Denial deck. Okay, so what do we got here? We've got Arcane Denial, Browse. I mean, those don't really see hardly very much play at all. Library of Latnam, no, doesn't really see very much play. Storm Elementals, no. Zurin Spellcasters, no. Nobody plays with those these days. So everybody clearly understands these days those are not big cards, and they don't even carry any value, even though these cards are like over 20 years old, right? It's understood clearly now to have been crap. But they were called out as cards you want to play in an actual deck. And now if we go to the actual price guide inside of here, let me flip forward to that. There we go. There's the price guide. So as you can see, the format was actually different, you guys, in 1996 than it was in 1995. There was just so many cards coming out. They realized they couldn't just pump them all out the same way. So let me flip forward a little bit to the cards that were the typical cards being printed in this date, which was like, okay, here's Homelands, and Alliances just came out. So that was an interesting thing. Okay, so let's go to the top. Here's Homelands. The entire set is worth $120. And when you start going through the set, let me refocus this camera a little bit here. What you actually see here, look, there's Abbey Gargoyles there at $1, Aether Storm at $2. You sure there's cards at like 15 cents to 50 cents, something like that. But you see that there's an awful lot of cards that hold value. And like, what is like one of these cards here? Let me find where that is on the page. So like these cards right here, that is, oh, Ace and Highway. Oh, like, you know, $5 card in the set. You know, nobody plays with it these days, right? But people played with it those days, and they actually had value. Baron Singer was considered to be one of the best cards in the set. Now, everyone understands this one, Autumn Willow. That was clearly understood to be one of the better cards in the set. But as you can see, you know, a couple Ace and Crusaders might trade you for an Autumn Willow, right? Back in that day. People actually played with these cards. If we go through and we look at the actual values, you see there's Daughter of Autumn even. Death Speakers, $3 each. What I'm showing you guys is the cards in there actually carried financial value and people actually played them. Now let's actually flip forward. That was 1996. Let's go forward to 1997. This is January of 1997, and I've got another deck saved here. Here we go, another killer decks. And let's see, what do we have here? We have Ambush Party. I mean, if I hold it at this angle, you guys can see we've got Charcoal Diamonds in there, Fire Diamonds, Shallow Graves, Dwarven Miner, Aaron the Relentless, Talarum Minotaurs, Volcanic Dragon. None of these cards, you know, really have significant value these days, but they were definitely getting played in decks. There's a whole article written about it, and then people were getting together and actually building decks out of these cards. And when we go to the price guides and we start looking at them, let's see, what was the newer sets here? So here's like, you know, Alliances. Mirage is in here now. So let's find where we get to Mirage. There we are. The whole set for Mirage can be had for $275 at this point. And when we scroll down and we look at the prices, you see the exact same kind of thing. You see that you got prices at like $6 here for Asmir, a Holy Avenger. Who plays with that? Nobody. But people did then, right? So it actually has value. Now, let me see if I can find the most expensive card in the set. And it's probably this one here, which is Grinning Totem at $25. At that point was considered to be the most expensive card in the set, right? But other cards in the set that you never see play like at all anymore these days, like Hammer of Bogarden, $15. Like, I specifically remember years later going to a store and seeing Hammers of Bogarden for $0.25 each because like nobody wanted them. They dropped in value like so much because people eventually realized that that effect was just too much money. But at this time, it was an important card. And again, same thing. You see, like when you scroll across, all of the cards actually have play value. So that's 1997. We're going to go to one last one here, actually here. This is the year 1998. This is the last Inquest that I actually have. And I've saved another article here with the Jester's Cap, big card here. Another killer decks. This one is called Purple Power, Kill, Kill, Kill. So if we get this in there. What do we have in Purple Power, Kill, Kill, Kill? Let's see, we got Manowar, Ophidian, Spindrift Drake. Ooh, that's a card that nobody cares about. Spindrift Drake. Come on, guys. Mog Fanatic, you know, those are good. People definitely consider those good. And the counter spells are considered good still these days. Impulse, Mana Leak, stuff like that. Reigns of Power? No, nobody plays Reigns of Power. Still, same thing. It's a mix of cards that are actually played. And you guys, when these killer decks came out, I mean, the very best tournament players might chuckle at them a little bit for what they selected to be some of the highest end cards. They weren't always like the best decks. I mean, Inquest didn't always design the best stuff, but it wasn't that far off. And a lot of people agreed with what was in here. And we're not asking the question of what did the very best Pro Tour players play. The question that we're answering is, was it bulk crap? Did it actually have value, right? Did people enjoy the cards? Is that what it actually was? So, okay, so there's 5th edition. So the hottest cards, dual lands are in there still, right? See, there's Weatherlight, Tempest is out at this point. Here's Stronghold, the newest set. Let's get Stronghold on the camera. So here's Stronghold. The whole set can be had for $150. And the most expensive card in the set is Mox Diamond, and there it is. Let's get that. Mox Diamond is in there at 20 bucks. The absolute most expensive card in the set. And they were right, you know. They actually, for once, players back then actually nailed a card that actually is one of the most expensive cards and deserved to be. But you still had an awful lot of other cards that had some amount of value. A Flowstone Mauler, $4. Like, whoever did that. Definitely the overall price of Stronghold is actually quite a bit lower, and you can actually see that. But you still have value across the board, right? And remember, in this old guide, see, when you see a star, that actually meant rare. And then I think the circle was uncommon and the square was common, if I remember right, for the way they did these price guides. And so, yeah, when you're looking across like the spectrum for all the rares and stuff, yeah, sure, they definitely still had value. So that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to make it very clear. I wanted to show some actual evidence. Edwin isn't talking out his rear. And why is this all important? This is important because some people have been taking the perspective that I'm being unnecessarily negative in some of my more recent videos. Well, let me ask you guys a question. When is it valid to be negative? Like, if there's something in life that's actually happening that isn't great, should people just be positive about it all the time? Should they talk about what their perspective is on if it's actually good or actually bad? Is it great long-term or is it not great long-term? Of course, I mean, I give you guys my opinions, and my opinions can be wrong. Sure, no problem. Maybe I am a fossil, like I was called in one of the other videos. But here's the point. I'm not without basis. I'm not without data. The perspective that I'm giving you guys when I'm talking about, I'm irritated about the fact that Wizards prints these new sets and you have a few good cards and then all the rest of it is crap. They don't have financial value and nobody plays with them, except for if they have to play with them in a draft. But that's just by default where you're at. When you're in a draft, you just take what you can get, right? You scavenge the worst cards because like that's all that's available to you. So it's not a really valid defense of it. It's in constructed where you really start to see if cards actually have some value. So the perspective that some people have that all that Wizards has always printed bulk crap, and it's always been a case of like there's a couple decks at the top of a format, or there's only a few cards that are worth buying and everything else is just bulk crap. That is not true. And what I just showed you is I actually just went across almost 5 years of data from like the beginning. That's just at least with the magazines that I've got. But I'm telling you, like if you go all the way back to like Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, 93 all the way to 95, where I actually started, it's the same kind of thing. You guys hear people all the time saying stories about how, oh, I traded a Royal Assassin for a Black Lotus. And, you know, what was a revised Royal Assassin worth, you know, at some point later? I mean, it's just, there's no value, right? But the point is back then they thought there was. And so it was not always the case that cards were always bulk crap. So I'm just making it clear that I'm not being unnecessarily negative. I'm actually giving you a factual, historical, data-driven opinion about where Wizards of the Coast is right now. And I'm clearly telling you guys, I don't like the direction that they're going. Printing cards that they sell them for higher value than they should be worth based on supply and demand and their value in the game and stuff like that. And even worse, that a lot of the cards are just garbage. As soon as they rotate out of standard or you don't have them in a draft, you're never going to play with them. Those two things are terrible and they shouldn't exist, right? Like not in the same universe, especially when you're paying this much money for the cards. So I think Wizards needs to step it up, and that's the reason that video was made. And now you guys have actually seen data for it. So there we go. Fossil speaks. Bye, guys.